Oh, I'm sure he's taking it on board.
Oh, 100%.
Tasty!
Guys, shut the fuck up! Oh.
Rory McIlroy screaming in a parking lot held back by Shane Lowry. Patrick Reed shushing the crowd with one finger to his lips. Fans hurling insults, waving rubber ducks, and even getting kicked out for crossing the line. And a caddy, Joe LaCava, swinging his hat in Rory's face at the height of the 2023 Cup. This isn't the gentleman's game you think you know. The Ryder Cup isn't quiet fairways and polite applause. It's chaos. It's rivalry. It's golf at its loudest, rawest, and often ugliest. 14 moments prove it, 14 times when the Ryder Cup boiled over, and it all begins with a folding chair in 1957. Picture the Ryder Cup in 1957. Scotland's Eric Brown is waiting on American Tommy Bolt. And waiting, and waiting. Bolt was known for his slow play, and Brown had finally had enough. Instead of pacing around, he sent his caddy to grab a folding chair. Right there on the course, Brown sat down while Bolt took his time. It was petty, it was deliberate, and it was the start of something bigger. When the match ended, there wasn't even a handshake. The tension didn't stop on the course either. Complaints rolled in about rowdy British fans, American frustration grew louder, and the Ryder Cup's gentlemanly image was already cracking. This wasn't just two players having a moment, it set the stage for decades of Ryder Cup hostility. Bolt hated the lack of respect. Brown thought he was making a point. Fans picked sides. Suddenly, this polite little exhibition match felt like war. Fast forward to 1969, America versus Britain again. But this time it wasn't about chairs, it was about nearly throwing punches. In a 4-ball match, American Dave Hill putted out of turn. That might sound small, but in Ryder Cup pressure, every little thing feels like an insult. His partner Ken Still got dragged into it too. On the European side, Bernard Galasher and Brian Huggett weren't about to let it slide. Voices were raised, tempers spiked. For a moment, it looked like fists might actually fly. Golf almost had a fight on the green. And here's the kicker. That same Ryder Cup was already tense because captains had instructed players not to help opponents find lost balls. Sportsmanship was being tossed aside. Hill and Still's near brawl was the perfect picture of what the Ryder Cup was turning into, golf's most combative event. Now let's jump ahead to 1987. Seve Ballesteros, a genius, a competitor, and at times the king of gamesmanship. In a 4-ball match against Curtis Strange, Seve pulled off one of his magic moments. He chipped in, the crowd roared, but instead of just soaking it in, Seve turned to Strange and asked, "Did that bother you?" That's not just confidence, that's a jab, a needle right under the skin. Curtis Strange didn't laugh, he was furious. And this was more than a one-off moment. It was part of a growing culture. The Ryder Cup wasn't about polite golf anymore. It was about rattling your opponent, getting under their skin, taking every inch you could, mentally and physically. Seve was brilliant at it, but he was also hated for it. To the Americans, this was disrespect. To the Europeans, it was fighting fire with fire. Either way, fans loved the drama. The same Ryder Cup gave us one of the ugliest atmospheres the event has ever seen.
Quick favor on the green, please hit that like and subscribe button. The majority of viewers haven't yet. It's free and helps us out massively. Already subscribed? Thank you. Back to the golf action.
They called it War by the Shore. It was 1991 at Kiowa Island. The Gulf War had ended earlier that year, and the American team leaned into military symbolism. Flags camouflage, a rallying cry of patriotism. But it wasn't just patriotism. It turned hostile. European players got harassed by fans. Insults were constant. Phone calls in the middle of the night to the team hotel. Nothing was off limits. The golf was fierce, but the environment around it was toxic. Players talked afterward about how draining it felt just walking from hole to hole. And while the Americans celebrated victory, plenty of people wondered if the Ryder Cup had gone too far. The phrase, "War by the Shore," wasn't just catchy, it was accurate. This was golf turned into battle. And in many ways, it set the tone for every Ryder Cup since. The event would never again be just polite competition. If there's one rivalry that defines Ryder Cup tension, it's Seve Ballesteros versus Paul Azinger, and it really kicked off in 1989. Here's the scene. Seve's ball gets damaged. Normally in golf, you can swap it out. But when Seve asked to make the switch, Azinger said no. He insisted Seve keep playing with it. That tiny refusal set off fireworks. Seve wasn't just irritated, he was insulted. He thought Azinger was stretching the rules, trying to rattle him, trying to take advantage. Azinger, on the other hand, thought Seve was bending the rules for his own benefit. Neither man budged. The match carried on, but the mood was poisoned. The exchange stuck with both of them. Seve saw Azinger as petty. Azinger saw Seve as sneaky, and it didn't stay on the course. For years, they kept firing shots at each other in press conferences and interviews. What started as a ball dispute grew into one of the most famous grudges in Ryder Cup history. By 1993, tensions were still boiling, and once again, Paul Azinger was right in the middle of it. This time, it was Nick Faldo across from him. The two were playing singles. On the 18th hole, Azinger faced a short birdie putt. Normally, in match play, you'd expect your opponent to concede a putt that short, but Faldo refused. He made Azinger actually hole it. To most players, that's an insult. It says, "I don't trust you. I think you might miss." Azinger, already wound tight from years of Ryder Cup animosity, took it personally. Faldo, on the other hand, defended it as just playing by the rules. But the rivalry energy between America and Europe meant every small action carried extra weight. This wasn't about the length of the putt, it was about respect or the lack of it. And moments like this kept feeding the fire that made the Ryder Cup what it is today, an event where egos collide as much as swings. 2 years later, the rivalry between Ballesteros and Azinger escalated. This time, it wasn't about a damaged ball, it was about the wrong ball. During a foursomes match in 1991, Seve and his partner Jose Maria Olazabal accused Azinger and Chip Beck of playing the wrong ball off the tee. That's a serious rules violation. Azinger didn't take kindly to being accused. Voices rose. The word liar was thrown out. You could feel the bitterness. This wasn't playful back and forth. This was personal. Seve was relentless. He lived for gamesmanship. If there was a way to get in your head, he'd find it. And Azinger, he wasn't the type to back down. Their battles were like mini dramas inside the bigger Ryder Cup war. Fans loved it, but for the players involved, it was exhausting. This incident burned the rivalry into Ryder Cup lore. From then on, Seve and Azinger's matches weren't just golf. They were clashes of pride. The 1999 Ryder Cup at Brookline is one of the most infamous chapters in golf history. If you talk about inappropriate Ryder Cup behavior, this is the one that always comes up first. Here's what happened. Justin Leonard drained a 45-foot putt on the 17th green. An absolute bomb. The crowd exploded. The American team, fired up beyond control, stormed the green in celebration. Players, wives, caddies, and everyone was out there screaming and hugging. The problem? Jose Maria Olazabal still had a putt to tie the hole, and the mob of celebrating Americans had stomped all over his putting line. The Europeans were furious. They called it disrespectful. They said it broke the unwritten code of sportsmanship, and honestly, they were right. Imagine trying to compose yourself for a critical putt while 30 people are partying on your line. Even now, decades later, Brookline is remembered for that moment. Not for Leonard's putt, not for the U.S. comeback, but for the chaos on the green. This wasn't passion, this was poor etiquette, and it left a stain that Ryder Cup captains have spent years trying to clean up. Fast forward to 2014. The U.S. team had just lost at Gleneagles. Emotions were raw, and instead of circling the wagons, Phil Mickelson threw his captain under the bus in front of the entire world. During the post-loss press conference, Mickelson was asked about the team's struggles. Instead of being diplomatic, he took aim at Tom Watson's strategy. Phil praised former captain Paul Azinger's approach in 2008, saying it empowered the players and gave them input. Then he contrasted that with Watson's style, implying it was outdated and ineffective. You could feel the tension on stage. Watson sat just a few seats away, staring straight ahead, expressionless. The rest of the team looked uncomfortable. It was shocking. Golf culture usually avoids public confrontation. Players rarely criticize captains in front of reporters, but Mickelson didn't hold back. Fans were split. Some applauded Phil for speaking the truth, others blasted him for being disloyal and creating drama when unity was needed, but there's no denying it. This moment exposed the fractures inside the U.S. camp, and it forced American golf leadership to rethink its entire Ryder Cup system moving forward. The Ryder Cup thrives on symbolism. Banners, flags, chants, colors colliding. But some moments become unforgettable. It's late evening, and the European locker room area is a chaotic carnival of triumph. Champagne sprays everywhere. Blue and gold flags hang from railings. Rory McIlroy, drenched in champagne and adrenaline, climbs onto a platform with a U.S. team poster listing every American player. He zeroes in on one name, Bryson DeChambeau. Bryson had been a lightning rod all week, representing the U.S. team's antagonistic style. Rory lifts a massive European flag and drapes it over the poster, covering Bryson's name. The crowd roars. It's not just playful, it's a statement, a symbolic burial of everything Bryson represented that week. Then Rory turns toward the emptying stands, toward the hecklers, and lets out a primal shout, STFU! Silence follows, then eruption. Teammates lift Rory onto their shoulders, the European crowd cheering. In that moment, victory became catharsis. Frustration became celebration. Some saw it as over the line. Others called it legendary. Either way, Rory's act captured the raw emotion, pride, and intensity that defined the Ryder Cup. By the time the Ryder Cup reached Rome in 2023, social media had made every little controversy explode into something bigger. And that year, Patrick Cantlay lit the fuse. He refused to wear a team hat. At first glance, it looked trivial, but word spread that his protest was about money, that he believed players should be paid to compete in the Ryder Cup. Fans ran with it. By the time Sunday rolled around, European supporters were waving their hats in the air, chanting, mocking him at every turn. The crowd energy was electric, but it wasn't positive, it was hostile. Every swing Cantlay made was met with jeers about his missing cap. And as the tension grew, so did the animosity between the two teams. For golf fans, the irony was clear. One missing hat had become the headline of the Ryder Cup, a symbol of greed to some, a stand for fairness to others. And it wasn't just about Cantlay anymore. His quiet act of defiance had pulled the entire event into a culture war. As if Hatgate wasn't enough, 2023 gave us another firestorm. This time, it was Patrick Cantlay's caddy, LaCava, in the spotlight. The setting, the 18th green. Rory McIlroy was lining up a putt. The atmosphere was already tense. Cantlay had just sunk a big putt of his own. LaCava celebrated by waving his hat, a jab at the European fans who had been mocking Cantlay all weekend. But here's the problem. He waved it right near Rory's line, while Rory was still preparing to putt. Rory snapped. He felt disrespected. Shane Lowry stepped in too. What should have been a routine finish nearly turned into a confrontation right there on the green. The footage shows Rory gesturing angrily, LaCava standing his ground and other players trying to calm things down. The Ryder Cup's reputation for drama had once again outshone the actual golf. What's telling is how quickly the clip spread online. Within minutes, the LaCava incident was the story. Fans debated whether it was harmless fun or outright disrespect.
A hat. There you can see right there Rory McIlroy going at Jim Bones Mackay about this issue. He said, "This can't happen. This can't happen."
And as we'll see in some of our next moments, Rory wasn't done being angry. Fast forward to 2025, and the Ryder Cup continued to deliver the drama. This time, it wasn't just players at each other's throats, it was the caddies. The scene involved Bryson DeChambeau and Justin Rose. On paper, it should have been a normal matchup, but tensions are never normal in the Ryder Cup. During one of Rose's putts, he asked Bryson's caddy to move because he thought he was in his line of vision. Seems like a simple request, but Bryson's team didn't take it that way. Words were exchanged, voices raised. Suddenly, it wasn't just Rose and Bryson. Other players and caddies got involved too. Golf fans aren't used to seeing this kind of scrap. Sure, players argue over rulings or slow play, but when caddies start jawing back and forth, it feels more like a boxing weigh-in than a golf match. The broadcast cameras caught it all. Rose gesturing, Bryson looking frustrated, and caddies stepping closer like they were ready to square up. For the spectators, it was theater. For the players, it was a headache. The match nearly derailed as both sides tried to calm things down. And once again, the Ryder Cup proved that its pressure cooker environment doesn't just push golfers to the edge. It drags everyone with them, even the guys carrying the bags. Fans debated the whole thing online for days. Was Rose being too sensitive? Was Bryson's caddy out of line? The arguments were endless. But one thing was clear. Even in 2025, the Ryder Cup had lost none of its edge. The final inappropriate moment on our list is also one of the ugliest. And again, Rory McIlroy was at the center of it. During the 2025 Ryder Cup, tensions between fans and European players were already boiling. But things went too far when a fan shouted a homophobic slur at Rory. This time, Rory didn't just shake his head and move on. He stopped, turned, and confronted the situation directly. He demanded security remove the fan from the course, and eventually, that's exactly what happened. The footage was powerful. Rory pointing into the crowd, his face locked in anger. Security stepping in, fans around the heckler looking stunned. In a sport that prides itself on decorum, this was a jarring moment. But it was also necessary. There's a difference between booing and hate speech, between cheering for your side and crossing a moral line. Rory made it clear he wouldn't tolerate it, not for himself and not for anyone. The debate raged online. Some said Rory overreacted. Others praised him for standing up against abuse. But either way, the Ryder Cup had once again made headlines for the wrong reasons. It wasn't about birdies, eagles, or clutch putts. It was about how far people are willing to go when tribal loyalty takes over. 14 moments. Nearly 70 years of Ryder Cup chaos. From Eric Brown's folding chair in 1957 to Rory McIlroy confronting fans in 2025, one thing is clear. This event brings out the best and the worst in golf. Rivalry, raw emotion, and unforgettable drama define the Cup. Which Ryder Cup moment shocked you the most? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more wild sports stories.